To get here, the car park, as far as the motorable road goes, as far as the public is concerned, to get here almost seems interminable. All the way up Glen Esk, where there's a folk museum. You might get a cup of coffee. But this is as far as the cars go if they're intending, say, to walk up to the Queen's Well or on to Mount Keen. Just as a wee experiment today, I've got a particularly small bike which might help me in the first couple of miles. Can't go wrong then, really. Really the first view of the Queen's Well, distantly, the crown arrangement, and behind quite prominently the track that's going up to Mount Keen. Not much in the way of bird life, but quite a lot of sheep life. So here we are, almost at the Queen's Well. Lord Dalhousie put it up in memorial, or as a memory of the Queen visiting it in 1861. That's old Queen Vicky I'm talking about. Old Queen Vicky in 1861 with her husband Albert. She was here, I think, in September. He died later, although it wasn't anything to do with the water he drank here. Well, this is the Queen's Well. (1861), old Queen Vicky. I think the water's, since it's a natural spring, I think the water would probably be quite safe to drink. Looks quite clear. There's no McDonald wrappers or KFC boxes lying about in it. Hey ho, here we go again. Probably time to hide the bike. Now, having said I haven't seen any bird life, this is Invermark Cottage, and in its, well, not quite its front garden, but just near it, there were no less than 3 ringoozles all hopping about like blackbirds do in the parks. Ringoozle, of course, is the mountain blackbird, but usually it's a scarce thing flying miles away or singing in a silent corrie somewhere. Anyway, that's the bike abandoned, and I'm not sorry to see it go. Now the sort of serious walking bit begins, really, I suppose. It's a bit of serious reverse stepping stones going on now. Hey! Looking back down Glenmark, down to the cottage, and again, there might be fair weather cloud building up, but it's certainly very still, with a sort of a heat haze shimmering. Still a bit of a way to go. Here's a foxglove, probably going for the high altitude record, on the path, on the Land Rover track to Mount Keen. And then, in the distance, that distant dome, is Mount Keen itself. Kind of looks a long way away, but I'm sure it's psychological. After all, we've come a good way already. And we've seen small pearl-bordered fritillary, we've seen wheatear, we've seen ringoozles, so it's not been quite such a wildlife desert as I was expecting, so that's good. Okay, so here I am at the zig of the zigzag on the map, looking back the way I've come, and it's just occurring to me that if this becomes by Mount Keene, running by Mount Keene, the Mount Road, one of the many Mount tracks between Aberdeenshire, the northeast, and the lands to the south. Very ancient tracks. Armies, peddlers, packmen, not just hill walkers and mountain bikers. These paths go back a long way, even though this one is a Land Rover track. That's the Zag up there. I'm standing on the Zig. Okay, it's fairly clear what's happening now. There's a cairn dead ahead, pointing towards the hill. The Mount path goes off to the skyline, but we stay with the Mount path for a little while yet. Also, while we're here, notice that the panorama involves much green and brown mottled areas. This, of course, is the result of muir burn, because quite a lot of the area around here is used for target practice, the targets being grouse. And all these hill tracks are mainly for taking, toffs, overprivileged toffs, up so they can kill the little grousies which feed on the new growth, which is the whole point of muir burn. They feed on the young grouse feed on the new shoots. I hope I'm being objective enough. Sections on the way to Mount Keene have been neatly laid, presumably by the estate, but on its approach it's got a classic false summit when you really think you've reached the top, and then another ridge appears. There's somebody on that ridge. You get an idea of scale. I think I'll have the top to myself since I'm the last up today, but you can do that on the longest day. Lochnagar looking nice. And then our old friends Meyer and Drish. Well, that's a trig point, an old Ordnance Survey triangulation point, so that has to be the top. Also, I'm starting to pick up the northeast views. I can make out the kind of reassuring outline of Benachie, which means we're in the real edge of the northeast, not quite in Buchan, but certainly looking over towards Formartine, with Strath D, or Royal D side, as our tourism people would want us to call it. The heather has disappeared now, too high for heather. There's crowberry, there's bilberry, there's orange peel. Oh well, no one's quite perfect. And there's been a wee Cooriedoon shelter. It's been built over the years. I'm sitting in the lee of the summit cairn of Mount Keene, pink granites as you can see, and on the horizon I've just realised that the Tapa North, the hill fort, second highest hill fort in Scotland actually, is lining up with what I can faintly see as the Knock Hill near Cullen on the Murray coast. So we're seeing a very long way. There's the Buck of the Cabrach there as well. I wonder if I can get it any closer. Yeah. Drish and Meyer there, and then swinging round across the mouth to the tip of Lochnagar, Cacarn Beg, I wonder if we were photobombed by 2 red admirals just now. They're flying round and round the summit cairn. They must be munro bagging. Didn't know red admirals did that. That's looking down into Deeside, Strathdee or Royal Deeside. Oh gosh, there go those red admirals again. What's going on up here? Must be a butterfly convention. Goodbye, Mount Keen Trig Point. Facing into the wind off the sea. It's blowing in from the east today. We'll make our way back to the bike and back to the car. I've just noticed a boulder up ahead with a large B inscribed on it. I'm sure there'll be a story attached to that. At the moment, I don't know it. If anyone does, please let me know. A boulder with a B. Presumably. Maybe it's for navigating from A to B, in which case I've arrived at B. I've left the top of Mount Keen with the sense that I've left something behind me. Maybe all that I've left is the height I gained through the steady plod to the summit. Maybe it was just nice to see the far north again, a glimpse the lower lands of Aberdeenshire. There's no real long ridge walk here. It's a gentle pace downhill. Back down to the lowlands of Angus. Here we have to slow down. I've just seen a notice, slow down for red squirrels, but they don't accommodate red grouse in quite the same way. Anyway, that's just how things work. It's been a lovely day in Mount Keen.